Hello, this is Cindy, and this is this week's edition of Monday Musings, and yes, it's coming out on Thursday because of all of the life that got in the way on Monday and over the weekend. So today we're going to play with some mixed media, and I'm going to be using a stamp from House Mouse, and we're doing one more Valentine theme. This is from Stampabilities, and it is available in our store. And it's the I Love You mice with the candy hearts. I'm going to be using some mixed media paper or watercolor paper. 140 pound is fine, or this mixed media paper from Canson is fine. And let's see, we're going to do some embossing, and I've used Stampendous embossing powder and black detail black. Used Versamark stamping pad. I used a little bit of ink, which this one is Martha Stewart's set, and I used Hibiscus and Pink Carnation. Okay, it's a chalk ink, so you could use Jenny Boland's inks or any other chalk ink brand that you prefer. And I have a little surprise for you at the end, so I don't want to show you that yet. I'm using a palette knife, and I'm using two Traditions brushes. It's a 3.0 liner and a round 3. And you can, of course, use brushes that you have, but these are really excellent brushes. And I'm using Traditions paint today, and I'm using the Warm White, the Medium Red Rose, and our watercolor medium. Now, to show you just how long these 3-ounce bottles last, this is, I go through a lot of Warm White, so I've got the new label on, the Deco Art Traditions label on my Warm White, and it's almost empty. But this Medium Red Rose that I have in my personal stash, it still has the old Jansen Art label on it because it just lasts that long. And my watercolor medium also has that old label on it, and you can see I've used it to about here. So this lasts forever. So, yours, if you choose to order it, yours will come with the new Deco Art Traditions label on it, but I thought I might explain why I have some discrepancy in the labels on here. It's because they just last so long. And the reason I'm using the colors I'm using is because this Medium Red Rose is a mix, and it's a mix of the PR12 pigment, which is Naphthol ASU. That's a pure red, as pure red as you can get it. Traditions Lines has a red that is a warm red, and that's Naphthol Red Light, and it has a cool red, which is Naphthol Red. And if you can see, I hope you can see on the camera, that this is warmer, this is cooler. Well, the Naphthol ASU comes right in between those. It is a very, very neutral red. Okay? So, we start with a neutral red, and then we add yellow oxide to it, which is pigment 42, which is a dirty yellow. And it's a neutral yellow, but it is very, very toned, and you can see the difference when you compare it to a neutral yellow. That this one, this yellow oxide, is a dirty yellow, and you will also know this hue by yellow ochre. That's, a name you might be more familiar with. It's the same pigment. So what we did then was mix that neutral red and a toned yellow and a little bit of white, and we get this color, this very peachy warm red. And when I add white to it, it's going to come out to a peachy salmon colored pink. And I'm using warm white because it is a white with a little bit of yellow oxide mixed in it. So by using this warm white, I'm using a white that already has the same pigment in it that this has, so you know that they're going to be very compatible and they're both going to be warm. So that's why I chose medium red rose and warm white to use. Okay? And then what we're going to do is turn this Traditions acrylic paint, it's a resin base, but we're going to change its binder. I'm going to alter it with gum arabic, which is what our watercolor medium is. It's gum arabic. This is one of the only two things in the Traditions line that you have to shake. You do need to shake the watercolor medium. You also have to shake the varnish. So that's the only two things in the Traditions line that you ever have to shake. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and you can use a bubble palette, you can use a little plastic palette. I have a nice porcelain palette that I use for watercolor, or you could just use your regular paper palette. You could use a paper plate, a styrofoam plate, really just about anything. I'm going to put, like I said, this is almost empty, so I'm going to put, let's put it here. I'm going to put a drop of warm white, and I'm going to put a drop of the medium red rose, and then I'm going to put an equal amount of the watercolor medium, and then I'm going to take my very thin flexible palette knife and I'm going to mix them. And I'm going to mix them for about 30 or 40 seconds because it's very, very important that these be thoroughly mixed. And as you mix it, you'll see that the, oops, don't want to squeak for you, you'll see that the viscosity of the paint changes. That's because this watercolor medium is, what's the word? Okay, it's surrounding every molecule of this paint. It's separating the molecules and then coating each of these molecules so that it changes from a resin binder to a watercolor binder, a gum arabic binder. So we make sure that we get these completely mixed together, and you will see the paint, the thickness and the tooth of it, you will see it change as you mix. Now with the normal watercolors that you buy, just a straight watercolor, you would be able to dry it and reconstitute it with water later, and you can do that with this, but we really recommend, since you use so little of it, you saw me use just one tiny drop of each color, and you see that I've got quite a bit of a puddle here, and then when we add water to it, we're just going to have a lot.
Incoming call from 877.
So as I continue to mix this to make sure that it's thoroughly mixed together, you know that with this little bit of paint, we're going to get a whole lot of watercolor. So if you throw this away after this painting session, you're not losing a whole lot. You really aren't. So don't be that stingy. It gets a little grainy when it's reconstituted, so even though you can do it, I don't recommend it. And when you use your Traditions supply, you have any color you want, and you can mix any color you want, and you don't have to buy a separate watercolor paint. You just use what you have and then throw it away. You've only used 2 drops of paint and 2 drops of watercolor medium, so it's very economical. Okay, so I've got those mixed, and then I'm going to put some water in these 2 other my water bottle's starting to get empty. So I'm going to put a little water in both of these so I have some to rinse with and to work with. Okay, and then I'm also going to use a little container here to put some more in so that I have it ready. When you're using watercolor, you want to have 3 receptacles of water, because you want one where that's always clean, and that will be this one. And then the other one you want to where you can rinse a little bit, and then to where you can add water to the paint you're working with. Okay, so what I did, here's what we're doing. We're working with a monochromatic palette today. And let me get it and find it. My goodness. Not as organized as I thought I was. Okay. So what I also did was I took and stamped it again and put it on and cut it out as a heart. But I want to show you how we go ahead and stamp this watercolor, and I'll just do it on the back of this one, and how we color it, okay, and how we emboss it. So I'm getting the stamp. I'll set this out to the side for a second, and I'm going to juice it up with my Versamark stamp pad. It's clear and it's sticky, and you want to get your stamp covered in it really well. Okay, and then I'm going to stamp on it. I'm going to just press down on all the areas of the design to make sure that there's contact. You could also do it by this method and press. Okay? So I'm going to put it in my little tray here, and I'm going to pour the fine detail black embossing powder over it. Okay, and we get all that nice detail that's on that stamp. I guess I cut off his little tail on this side a little bit, so we're all going to use the other side to color. And then you want to be sure and pour your embossing powder back into its container. I love this little tray. I use it every single time I emboss. If you don't have a tray like this, then just do it over a piece of copy paper, computer paper, or something like that, and fold it up and slide it back in. Okay. Now I'm going to take my heat gun and emboss it. Doesn't take very long. And the reason I decided to emboss this image is because the embossing just raises up a little bit, and it's easier to keep your watercolor where it's supposed to be when you have that raised image. Okay? Looks like this image got just a little bit more powder on it than this one, but it's not going to matter. Okay, so I'm going to take our watercolor paint, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of water, and I'm going to put it over here in this well. Just going to use, I'm starting out with my number 3 brush, my round brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of the medium red rose pigment, mix it with that water. I'm going to come over and take a little bit of my white and mix it in, and now we get that peachy pink. Okay. I'm going to come over here. Now I want my light source to come from this direction. So the first rule you need to remember with light in a painting or any kind of a composition is that it always comes from the same direction. You can't have light on this side over here and then light on this side over here. It always has to be on the same side. So since I want mine coming from this direction, then my light parts of my hearts will all be on this side. Okay? Now this section is darker because it is the side part of the heart, and you need to make it darker so that you can create the illusion of depth. Okay? So when we start out, when we first touch paint to the picture, we want to start in the area that we want to be the darkest. And I want you to be very careful not to lose your light, because we're also using the paper as our lightest highlight. So I'm only going to come a little bit to the edge. I'm not going all the way to the edge. Now I have a small piece of shop towel that I've cut into a small square because it's easier to handle, and I'm going to use it to blot. Then I'm going to come back with just a little bit more of the medium red rose pigment. Come and get some more water. Make this just a little bit darker, and I'm going to come back over the same area to put that shadow in. Okay, I'm going to blot it. And I blotted a little bit too much. Just let it soak in a little bit. And let it kind of run where it will, because that's what watercolor paper does. It's so absorbent, and I didn't seal it first because I want to use those absorbent qualities. Okay? Now, I'm going to wipe my brush a little bit, and I'm going to just put it in water, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to spread this around just a tiny bit so I can soften that line so that you don't really see that line. And I still got my white background with just a hint of a pink color in it, but you don't see a demarcation line right here. Okay? So we want to do the same thing here so that we just blend it into each other. Now if you color with Copics, then I know that you know this this method, this technique. Okay? So we're going to come one more time back into our mixture here and come back on this side again, because the way you darken and shade in watercolor is to apply layers. I'm using the same mixture, but I'm just applying it over top of it again, and it's what darkens it. And then you just want to blot a little bit. Okay, see how that's happening? And if you want to, you can use what's called a dome blender, and you can come in and do some little pouncing and things to blend. Okay, but it's not necessary, but you can use it. Okay, so let's go to our next heart right here, and again we need our dark part here. So we're going to start out, and if your paint starts to thicken up, just dip more water. Just lay the paint in. Blot your brush, let it soak in for a moment. Okay, and then blend. Again, you can take your dome blender to do that with. Leaving the white undisturbed over here. Okay, I need to make more paint, more of my mixture, because it's drying under my hot light. Okay. Now I made this heart a little darker than the first one because it's a little farther away from the light. Go over it a second time. Blot it. Now I'm going to get more water on my brush so that I have a lighter concentration of pigment, and then I'm going to come over here and put my lights in. Very, very softly. Just barely laying color down. Okay? And while we're over here, we can paint in this edge of the heart. Okay? And we can do that with this one as well. It's mostly got, black embossing powder, but you can get the hint of color in there. We'll go over this second time to make it darker. And let's put one more layer on this side. Okay. I think I want to put one more on this. Okay, let's move over to this third heart. Let's mix our color again. You see, I've done all of this painting with just a couple of drops of paint and some water. Alright, so let's start here. Let's add a little more pigment because this heart is farther away from the light than the second one. Let's make this a little more liquid. And I'm going to go all the way across, but I'm just barely touching the color on that side because I do want that side to be lighter. And I'm going to take my towel and just blot that just a tiny bit. I'm adding more water so I can pull some of the color back out again. Okay. And then I'm going to come in here to this darker side and shade this side of it again. It's kind of a little bit of back and forth till you get to look like you want it to. Okay, and let's go back over this one again and darken it. Okay. So there's our hearts. And then we want to take I'm going to take my my little liner brush, wet it, and come in here to this pink, and I'm going to put this pink on his nose. And this one, and I do want this to be a little deeper pigment, because watercolor always lightens when it dries. Okay, and then we're going to add a little more white up here. Or we can do it in here, yeah, so that we get lighter. So now we've got just a really, really pale shell pink over here. Okay, and we're going to color in the feet and tails. Okay, and get just a little bit pinker, and we'll do the ears. And the hands. Oh well, paws. And then we're going to go back to our lighter pink. It makes this a little more fluid. And do the faces. And then I'm going to come back to my 3 round brush and go into this very light shell pink and put the rosy blush into the fur. Okay. So now if you see any parts in your hearts that you would like to have a little bit deeper, you can go back into your darker pink and add a few layers. Blend them. You know, it's your choice which way you blend them. Let's put a little more color in his face here. I think I want to do these ears a little more colorfully. Okay. And I keep trying to wash my brush in my brush basin, but it's empty. That's why you see me keep reaching over here. Okay, so there's our monochromatic I Love You Guys. And then I'm going to come back to my 3.0 liner. I'm going to come into this clean water and just the white, and I'm going to come over here and make a fluid white with just not really even any pink at all, maybe just a tiny bit residual from the brush. And I'm going to come over here and lighten up this edge with that white. Okay, so that we get our highlights in. There I go again, reaching for that basin. I sit here in the same place and paint every day, and my basin sits in the same spot every day, and it's just habit. Okay, so now I'm going to pull out this the Martha Stewart little petal stamp pads, and this one is Pink Carnation, and I'm going to just go around the edges. Now this heart isn't cut perfectly. I hand cut it. I didn't want to take the time to see if I had a cricket heart, and I know I don't have a die for it, so you know, you can do that as you wish. Now that I've gone around the edges, I'm also going to pull the paint back out of the way. I'm also just going to touch here and there in the centers just to break up that white. Okay. And then I'm going to take the hibiscus and darken the edges. Let me get this lighter pink a little. I'm going to go back over top of it and blend those two colors in so that I don't have that demarcation where the dark one starts and the light one ends. So see, if you go back over the top with your lighter color, then you are able to blend them in Okay. Alright. Now, as I've been doing in some of my past videos, I wanted to show you a couple of, let me get this out of the way so don't bump into it, a couple of suggestions for how you can make your card. And I wanted to show you that you can do a lot of different things. So, you know, you could use this kind of writing as a mat. You want to get a warm red, one that has a little yellowish background. You could make your card this way, this kind of a mat. You could do something like this if you want a pop of color, like that. Okay. Then we could get the tag. Then we could get some other looks like this. Although I think it might look better like that. Or bring this green back in. Could go that way. That's very pretty. I really like to play with color and patterns. And if you really want to jump out at somebody, I think that is really fun. Really fun. Okay, we can go back to some more subtle things. But here's what I want to do today. I want to use the chocolate brown and pink. Okay, and this paper comes from My Mind's Eye Lost and Found. I think it's 6x6. It's a really nice pad of paper. Really, really nice. I love this paper. And it's all edged by sort of an aged, like tea dye color on the edge. Okay, so let's cut a mat. Get my paper cutter out here. Well, first of all, let's get our card. Now this piece of paper already has a fold in it, so let's see if I can make that work. Yeah, I think maybe we can. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that right here. And let's make it how you like the way I measure. Like that. Okay. Take my pencil and mark that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I like how that goes together. Okay. So here is the surprise. This is called an action wobble spring. And what you can do is on your card, on the inside of your card, you want to take the part where it says this side down, take off the paper backing, and place it on your card. I'm going to center mine. Okay, and then I'm going to take the rest of the backing off. And I'm going to place my heart. Now my measurements are off just a little bit with this heart, but it's going to be okay. And then I'm going to cover that. Now let's pretend that we don't see that right there, okay? So let me get my adhesive. And we'll cover our mat. Put our mat here on the outside. Press that down. And let's see, we need to decorate the front side, don't we? Okay. I've got some brown and okay. I've got 3 different kinds of brown and pink ribbon here. We could use that one. That's nice on there. There's some hearts. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too busy, even though we've got a heart on the inside. And here's some brown and pink dots. Let's Now I think that's a little too much. So after all of that, that's just a little too much. I'm liking this. It's a lot going on, but I think it works kind of well. But let's try just, well, let's see, just a plain brown ribbon would also work. That's nice too. So let's go ahead and make a ribbon here. Okay, I'm getting it around. I'm going to bring it out here and tie it. Yeah, I think I am. Okay. Okay, so if you want just the brown to show, it's like that, or if you want to turn it around and have the love to show, you could do it that way. Just leave it at the brown for right now. And okay, I don't have a stamp that says Happy Valentine's, but I do have this Capture the Moment in Your Heart, and I think that we could put that here with some brown ink. Let's try it. Or let's do it here near the bottom. Okay, that'll work. So we've got this on the front, and you open it up and you have your action wobble on the inside. How's that for a Valentine card? Hope you like it.